Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. This is episode 104 and Coach Ryan Johnson is on with us. And I'm super excited for this. There are a few coaches that come to mind that are just people that have been in the high school sector. They've been holding down the fort in that area for a long, long time. I was just telling them about the people that I learned from early on when I really knew that I wanted to be a high school strength coach. And his name is one of them that rises to the top with that. And I'm super excited to have him on because he's going to be a guy that has a lot of insight, has a lot of background information that spans not just, the ins and outs of strength and conditioning, but what I was really drawn to was his culture building, what it looked like in a big school too, and just building that culture from the inside out. And I loved all the things he would talk about. And the reason why I got to listen to him so much was because I went to the Mid-America NHSSCA conference, regional conference. And that was such an eye-opening thing because it just let me learn and dive deep, I think is the way that he would say it, on just a school and how he was helping his athletes out. But before we get to the show and before I introduce him just a little bit more, we're going to do our sponsors and go through our sponsors. And I want everybody to know, like we read these at the beginning, these sponsors are awesome people. They're awesome businesses. They want the best for their clients. And I'm telling you, we don't just read this to read it. I want you to know that they are here for you and they are doing the best at what their thing is. And for Team Builder, the first one up, they are the leading software company for high schools and colleges, providing coaches the ability to write programs online and generate over 13 reports and even train athletes remotely for side income. So right now, if you sign up with code BIGTIME, so make sure you get the word Big Time in there, you'll receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically with Team Builder. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with Team Builder. And one of the, people talk about it all the time, but during this time of COVID, when things are hit and miss, everything changes day by day, all of this stuff, maybe even minute by minute, it's super nice to be able to get that out to your athletes very quickly. So Team Builder is our first sponsor there. And our second sponsor is Powerlift. And Powerlift is kind of the rack that I've lifted on for a long, long time now. Powerlift is the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for collegiate and high school athletic performance centers around the world. Powerlift brings over 20 years of experience to the strength and conditioning world. All products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Jefferson, Iowa, which I'm a little partial to because it's in Iowa. They're proud to support all coaches making it big time where they're at. And then the last one, this one is awesome. He's another high school guy. He's killing it. He's down in Florida. This is Jeremy Evans' Progressive Speed System. Are you a strength and conditioning coach who struggles in the area of speed development? Do you wish you had the system to teach acceleration and multi-directional speed like the system you use in your weight room? Do you know a lot of speed and agility drills, but you don't know what the drills are supposed to be teaching your athletes? If you would like a system that allows you to plug in your favorite drills in a progressive way to allow you to slowly prepare your athletes to move better on the field or court, head over to evansportsperformance.com and type in BTS 50 for $50 off the progressive speed system, which going through that, it was nice. I loved how he organized things. It makes it so he gives you drills, no doubt. He shows you videos. You could just use his system and boom, you have it. But it's really nice because now I can take all my drills and plug it into his system and then kind of progress and regress off of those too. And it just makes everything make more sense as you're programming. And that's the total benefit with that. So thank you for Jeremy Evans with that one too. Now, getting directly into our show here, Coach Ryan Johnson, he's up at Wayzata High School. It's in the Minneapolis area. I'm not sure what actual town. He'll get into that, but up in the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. And man, he is doing awesome things there. And I can't wait to dive a little bit deeper in this episode. Coach, welcome to the show. If you want to give us your background to open up, love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, man, I got to tell you, big time podcast here. You got some big time sponsors. Those guys are legit. I mean, Team Builder is awesome. Hewitt and the guys, Powerlift, everybody knows them. And man, Jeremy, he's doing big things down there in Florida with his stuff. So that I just love hearing, the show is connected to such great people and great things. And you nailed it, man. This isn't just lip service. That's some solid stuff there. That's awesome. So I'm just happy to be on and happy to be a part of sharing the message that, all of us are out here doing. And Wayzata High School is actually located in Plymouth, Minnesota, which is about 15, 20 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis. So we're a western suburb, and big school, right? There is a town in Wayzata, but we only have one school in that town anymore. We have a middle school there. So how school districts go, they span towns and cities and stuff. But yeah, so we're a big school located in Plymouth, Minnesota. And, we're actually the largest high school in Minnesota. We say that just because, around here, whenever we talk about Wayzata, everyone says, yeah, well, it's because you're so big, well, it's not always easy managing large numbers and stuff, good problem to have, but that's where we're at. So I've been at Wayzata for 19 years. This is my 23rd year of teaching, and I've been teaching health and phy-ed all the way through. And what I always tell people is, it's amazing. I'm at Wayzata High School, the biggest school in Minnesota, but I grew up in a real small town. Basso, Minnesota, southwestern Minnesota, home of the Rabbits. My graduating class was 55 kids. Town was 745. So now I got like 55 kids in a class, and our graduating class is around 1,000, bigger than my hometown. So, I grew up in the small town life, farm town, but now I'm dealing with kids and stuff on a bigger scale. But my roots have always been and will always be a small town guy, because that's right. You can't grow up in that environment, picking rock and baling hay. Cleaning hog barns and doing that stuff, and then going up to get a little workout in at night after all that, right? So a lot of love for those small town programs. I really do. Yeah, both my parents are retired educators. So my mom was an elementary teacher, and my dad was a high school history teacher. He was my first coach. He coached me in 3 sports: football, basketball, and track. And he's the guy that got me into weight training. He established our strength and conditioning program at our high school. And the reason that he set up our program was he got tired of losing to a team in our conference. And he, this is way back in the, mid 80s. And he called up that team and he basically said, why do you guys kick our butts every year? And they invited him over and showed him their weight room and talked about a strength program. And he came back and created a strength program for us. And, it was on the stage. We had the old high school with the stage overlooking the gym, right? And so we had the shop class build benches and squat racks. And every spring, the theater department would set up for the musical, and they'd take over the stage and use our weights to set up the backdrop for the play. And we'd want to bench, and we'd take the weights, and Camelot would come crashing down and everything. So, I totally get the process, of the small school strength coach, and those are my roots. So I'm always happy to share stuff. And it was because of that high school reaching out and telling my dad, hey, we lift weights. That's why we're pretty good. What's your weight program? And, they didn't have to tell him anything, but they did. So I kind of feel that it's come full circle. So anytime anybody ever calls me or talks to me and asks me about strength and conditioning, I wouldn't be where I was today if that school didn't share. So it's in my DNA to try to help anybody else get to a better spot, especially in strength and conditioning.
That's awesome, Coach. And one of the things that I think about was the morning and well into the afternoon where you spent just going through your program, what it looked like, the ins and outs, all the way from what it looks like to work with the janitors and the cafeteria workers. And I remember your T-shirts and everything that you did with that. And you started, and you really took all the stakeholders, no matter who they were, and you started to form this culture. I wanted you to talk about, you've been at a place for 19 years, right? And there is a strong culture there. How did you go about building it? And then maybe even more so, and this is something that I really want to start learning about, is how do you maintain or push forward a culture too?
Yeah. So the number one thing I was tasked with when I started at Wayzata was, I remember that at the time, the head football coach and the athletic director said, we want you to build something that everybody wants to be a part of. And when I heard that, I didn't just hear something that all the athletes want to be a part of. I heard everybody wants to be a part of. And I really took that to heart. And I knew that, the athletes were paramount, right? We had to get the athletes in. But, the athletes do what the parents tell them to do a lot of the time, right? And so that was my first mission. And at the time, when we started up our summer strength and conditioning camp and doing everything, we had a lot of kids that parents were out getting personal trainers and they were going to Lifetime or some other places to lift, right? And I started with the football team because that's the largest chunk of kids. That's the biggest group on campus. I thought, all right, and I was a football coach. I'm still a football coach at heart, even though I haven't been on a sideline now for 5 years. But, and so I'd ask kids, hey, we got the summer program going. Are you coming on in? We need to get you guys going. And, a kid would say, oh, I left at Lifetime. And I said, wow, Lifetime, how's their football team going to be this year? Because I know how the Trojans are going to be, And it was just kind of disjointed. It wasn't quite as organized. Not at any fault to anybody, but I just kind of had this vision, kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club. I wanted it something that everyone wanted to be a part of, to tune into, to get on board with. And so that was our mission. But again, it wasn't just the kids and the parents. I had coaches meetings. I reached out to every coach in the building, and I quickly made friends with anyone I could, and anyone that would be a part of it or come across our program. Word travels fast, right? So the custodians are huge. Anyone that's in the high school or any school for that matter knows that you need to establish relationships, and the custodians are a great way. I'll tell you right now, I've got the cleanest room in the building. Temperature, I can do whatever I want with the AC and the heat. Those people are my friends. I get them t-shirts. They're a part of the program. One of the things I heard many years ago was they had asked a janitor at NASA. They said, what's your job? And, that guy was walking around cleaning up and emptying trash. And that janitor said, this was back on the mission to the moon. He said, my job is to help put a man on the moon. And so it's all hands on deck. It's everybody, right? Everybody has value. Everybody plays a part in this. And nobody's better than somebody else. It doesn't matter what your role is, but man, that has always stuck out in my mind. Here we are, a guy that comes in third shift at night, middle of the night, but his job was to put a man on the moon. And guess who comes in and cleans up our weight room and makes sure that we don't have COVID right now? It's our third shift, and those guys and gals, they get treated with the utmost respect, and they get t-shirts, and they're in the stands, at the games as well, or they're checking the things out. And, that's one thing I've always thought, those custodians that come in after the hoopla, right? After everyone's done celebrating, man, they cheer for us. They want to know what's going on. They're a part of it. And they want to say they work for Wayzata and Wayzata state champs, and everybody's got value, right? So that was one of the mainstays of my culture. When I heard that we want something that everyone wants to be a part of, I cast a real wide net, right? Didn't have tunnel vision on just the athletes or anything like that. And then, of course, administration and counselors, you want them on board too. But probably showing my roots there a little bit, talking about, the people that are the hard workers and really get stuff done, that I went to first.
Yeah, it's really easy to see the people that are impacting your program so much daily that maybe people just overlook, right? And right. I think that's so awesome that you've done that. And that's something that stuck out to me, what is that? Like 4 years ago now, I listened to you. I think it was 4 years ago. I listened to you, and it's something that I still remember. And I think that's something that is, I want that to be part of my legacy. I want that to be part that everybody has value and everybody is a part of that team. And I think that's fun. I think that gets a lot of people involved. And when you have people that want to be involved in stuff, it's cool. All right. So not to switch gears too much, but I know that, at a bigger school, you're a small school at heart guy, right? That's where you grew up. That's your roots, but you're at a big school now. What's the toughest hurdle you've had, and how did you overcome that challenge?
So this is an easy one. The toughest thing that I deal with, and I'll say from a year-to-year basis, is we are a large school, large programs. We actually have a fair amount of coaches turnover. Not necessarily our head coaches, but there's a lot of different coaches that kind of come in and out. A lot of our coaches are assistants and end up being head coaches somewhere else, or some of our, smaller sports, they rotate coaches a lot. So the biggest hurdle I had was, expressing how we do things in a manner that it isn't like, this is how I do things and, it's my way or the highway. It's like, this is what we have to do to make everything work with all of these programs, and one of the things I talked to about is, I'm not going to get hung up on training philosophies, and I'm not going to get hung up on a lot of things. I have my thoughts, right? But at the same time, I take things down to a scheduling issue. It's like, okay, I've got to get X amount of teams and athletes and people through. So, please understand, I'm not trying to say you're wrong for wanting to train your team like this, but just say, here's how we have to do things to make things work for everybody here. So, and what I've done is I've created what I would say is a fairly unified system of training. We blend our curriculum and our classes during the day as well as after school, just to try to mitigate the numbers that we have. And as big of a high school as we are, the biggest in Minnesota, our graduating classes are nearing 1,000 apiece. My weight room is only 5,000 square feet. I have an auxiliary room that's about 3,000. So training space is at a premium. So a lot of what we do is just managing those numbers and then the times that they're in. And, I've got a life, I've got kids, I can't be there till 9 o'clock every night. So a lot of that has to do with that. So the biggest hurdle that I have, I would say, is just the, turnover of coaches and philosophies. And how it is, you get a new assistant coach in whatever sport and they trained a certain way in college, and hey, I think we should do this. And, yeah, that's some good stuff, but you're looking at about a 2.5 hour workout there, and that's good. We need to streamline that a little bit. So it's those communications and streamlining the programs into a unified system that we utilize kids lifting in class. I teach classes, but I allow the kids to do their sport workouts in my class, obviously. It only makes sense. You've only got so much room, you got so many kids, you got to get everybody through in the most efficient manner. So, and it's good. And the way to do that is with communication and just laying it out like that. Do everything I can to put my ego on the shelf and say, look, I got a lot of ideas, but I'm not a dummy, right? I'm not going to tell you no, because I'm not here if it wasn't for sports and coaches. So, but in order for it to work for everybody, we have to do it like this.
Yeah, Gage Rozier, my co-host, he's kind of in that same boat, right? Like he's got over 400 athletes, 20 teams, trying to get everything scheduled, getting everybody in there when they want to be in there, and juggle everybody's what they think their philosophies are and do all that. That's really tough. And one of the things I'm just thinking about when I have all these conversations with coaches, when I have people on, what I'm really looking at is, man, what do I need to do to work my program up more, or what's something that we can dive into more? So the next question for me is, how do you set up those meetings, or how do you have those conversations? Is it a formalized? Do you do all this informal and you just communicate with all these sport teams, or do you have some sort of process for that communication with each sport team?
Yeah, we've got a really good system that I really take part in at Wayzata, and that is our athletic director has a coaches meeting. He's got a coaches roundtable. They meet, once a month in the mornings before class starts. And he's also got kind of a fall sports meeting, a winter sports meeting, and a spring sports meeting. I attend all of those meetings. I'm there, and then it's an ongoing coaches roundtable too. We do a little book study too. So I'm a part of those meetings, and I'm just always a presence. And, each time I get to introduce myself and present, who I am. And the old mainstays get kind of, it's RJ, And so I try not to go too in depth, but I just kind of say, hey, I'm RJ, I'm the strength coach. Those of you that are, don't know me, feel free to reach out to me, email me, call me up. I'm always available. I'm in the weight room all day, every day. I'm here before school, I'm after school. A lot of our coaches now, more so than ever before, are not teachers, actually. So we're seeing more and more coaches from the private sector. And so I think it's really important for me to attend those coaches meetings to introduce myself, make myself available, and I can kind of get out ahead of a lot of stuff by just saying, hey, look, look around, that parking lot is full and all of those kids want to be in the weight room. So I'm here to help you out, do whatever it is that you want to do. But, we've got some limited space and, so I'm there. I think it's important to get out ahead of it, and introduce yourself. And, the meetings I go into and I know all the coaches, it's just like, hey, let me know what I can do to help you out. If you want to make any adjustments or whatever, but being available is pretty paramount to that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I really like the roundtable, the coaches roundtable. We've started that, and maybe at our size of school, we don't need to do the fall, winter, and spring one, but 2. But I really like that idea to really get it narrowed down to those sports season so that those coaches can mesh the way that they need to. But man, what a cool deal just to get the athletic programs together like that so that people can learn. I'm sure you've got coaches that can learn, basketball coaches can learn from football and volleyball coaches can learn from cross country and all these different overlaps of, developing kids. I think that's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah. And, those ongoing ones with the book studies, that's really cool because our athletic director is out, we read the, inside out coaching and we talked about transformational versus transactional. So then through those discussions, like in small groups within the large group, those coaches kind of get to see a deeper dive right into me and go, he's not just a whistleblowing, yell, scream, lift as much as he can. There are a lot of other facets to the program here. So, I'm very thankful. I didn't start that program. I just jumped on board, but it'd be really easy for me to say, hey, I got to train kids. I can't go to that, but I always make sure we got coverage in the room so I can go to it. Because those are the things, and building those relationships and letting the coaches see me in a different mindset, they get to know what my true philosophy is. And I think that goes a long way to building those relationships.
Coach, you said it right there, your true philosophy. And I know it's hard to put into a podcast that's, it's shorter. And I spent a whole, I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 hours listening to you, and you still probably had more to talk about before. So what I really want to know is if you could narrow some things, some main points down to your philosophy, if that's your training philosophy or how you develop kids or whatever that is, could you start to dive into that just a little bit? And it doesn't have to be every single little thing, but a general overview, especially if we've got a new high school coach on here and they're really trying to figure out how they put together what they need to put together for a class or for before school or after school lifting. How do you go about that?
Yeah, had you asked me this question in year 1, my answer would have been sets and reps, nose to the grindstone, hard work pays off, that deal. And hard work does pay off. I'll admit to that, and I agree to that. But the longer I've coached, the more I realize my role and my job is not nearly as much about sets and reps as it is about being there for those kids and building relationships, building trust. And one thing that I have really focused in on in the last, I would say, 4 years is the soft skills. And what I mean by soft skills is it's basically, the accountability. We had a great professional development presentation a number of years ago that I actually paid attention to at teacher workshop. I didn't sit in the back and write workouts. And it was all about the LinkedIn top 10 soft skills, what LinkedIn employers were looking for. And it was be on time, be a good person, be a good team player, works well with others, thinks outside the box. And those are the things I actually hung on my racks. I've got my warm-ups and our workouts and everything, but I actually hung the LinkedIn top 10 soft skills matrix on my racks. And when a kid, needs a conversation, right? We're all teachers and coaches, and we know we have kids that need conversations. It is so easy for me to walk over and go, hey, look, the rest of your life, no matter what you do, probably going to be important that you're on time and that you're wearing the right uniform and that you're doing your job and that you're working well with others and that you can have some foresight and think ahead, And so the more that I'm doing this, and I got to give a shout out to Kevin Vanderbush, my mentor, the guy that I really looked up to. It's strength and conditioning is our vehicle for teaching kids responsibility, life lessons, and all of those things. Now, if they're an athlete, yeah, you're going to need strength and conditioning wherever you go, especially if you go to college, right? So that's easy. Teaching strength and conditioning and getting kids stronger to me is easy. It's far harder to crack that kid that's got a really tough home life, that has got a lot going on, that's bitter against the world. And if you can build a relationship with that kid and say, dude, you got a shot, you have a shot, but you got to go to class, you got to turn in your homework, you got to do your things, and so the more and more that I'm into this game, the more and more I see that it's about more than just the physical nature of sport. It's that emotional component, it's that well-being, and really the biggest victories in life for these kids are going to come way down the road, not just out there on the field of the court. And when you start thinking that you have a chance to impact people's lives, for the rest of their life and not just win a state championship, I think when you put things in that perspective, our jobs are really important. And I'd rather focus in on that than, the wins and losses on the field or the court. So, but that's been a big shift for me. And I think the longer I do this, the more I really understand the value of what I can do for people.
Yeah, that resonates with me well, man. Because what I really think about, there's some kids, man, strength and conditioning, being in the weight room is an amazing outlet for them. And for whatever reason, they gravitate to the strength coach that's in there. Okay. So we've got insights to these kids and a path to these kids that maybe a lot of coaches don't have, or a lot of teachers specifically that don't have that. So we have that platform and to use that for good and to really make sure that kids understand that, winning state championships is not wrong. It's amazing. Okay.
Yep.
But really, in the grand scheme of things, all the byproducts of winning that state championship is so much more important. Right. And to have a championship culture, it doesn't mean once you have a ring, you have a championship culture. It's more than that. And so I like the way that you're going with this and answering that question, because really, when it comes down to it, if our job is just X's and O's, then it's super shallow. Okay. Obviously we have to be good at our craft. We have to be. Okay. Yep. But it has to go deeper than that too. So I love that. That's good stuff.
Well, and that's why I love the high school game. I really do, because you get to the college level and it is about wins and losses. Mm-hmm. If a collegiate coach is losing, the first person to go is a strength coach, just because they got to have a scapegoat. And who knows, that strength coach might have been doing a great job. The old saying is it's more about Jims and Joes than X's and O's, right? And, that's true. And I feel that I have the opportunity to make the most impact in kids' lives at the high school level, because yes, it's important to win. It's important to work hard to win, and the thing about state championships is every season and every sport and all the work that goes into it is why we do what we do. But, every once in a while, man, is it nice to be able to put a ring on it and show that sometimes hard work pays off in hardware. That's awesome. I'll never say that it's not a good thing, but we've had a lot of very successful seasons that didn't result in a championship. But at the same time, my successes I measure in the number of kids that stay in contact with me, and I've been in their weddings and I go to the openings of their restaurants and coffee shops and things like that. It's great to see kids winning in life beyond just, the gridiron of the court or anything like that.
Yeah, you talk about inside out coaching in that book. That's like Joe Ehrman, right? Like,
absolutely.
How's your team look this year? And he's like, I'll tell you in 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, no, really, that's it. That's exactly it. I went to the opening of a coffee shop by a guy that played Ivy League football for me, and he went into coffee roasting. And I was down there on Saturday, touring around his new little coffee roasting facility. And I thought, this was a guy that he was a butt kicker on the field. He did great. He went to Dartmouth, he killed it. And I'm like, this guy's going to kill it in the coffee roasting business. There's no doubt. I can just see that,
Isn't that so
it's
cool?
Awesome. It's just great.
That is awesome. So with that, right, you've been in the game for a long time, 19 years at Wayzata. You're going to coffee shop openings and weddings and all this type of stuff, but you still have this fire to keep on going. Can you tell me about your vision for the program? Where do you want it to be in the next 5 years? What keeps you getting out of bed every morning to give everything you got?
Yeah, I'm going through the leadership kit right now, Winning Leader Academy with Jeremy Boone, and we talk about our mission land. What's our promised land? I'm sorry, our mission on our way to our promised land. And I'm kind of having a hard time writing my promised land statement because I feel like I'm living my promised land right now. I get up every day and get in front of hundreds of athletes, students, hundreds of kids, and show them that, hard work is important, being on time, the little things are important. And I just, what keeps me going is I stay young by working with these young kids. I really do. My wife says that I'm, perpetually a teenager, which she's probably right, but, what keeps me going is the fact that, the kids keep coming, right? And they keep learning. And, we kind of repeat things, and it's really easy to kind of go, oh, man, here's a great example. I've got 4 kids, and so I've coached them all in youth sports, right? And, you coach one kid through all the way through like 8th grade, and then you jump down to the kid that's just starting out in 4th grade. And, you kind of got that 8th grade coaching mentality in your mind, and you're like, what are you doing? You're like, all right, 4th graders, all right, you got to kind of reset. I get to reset every year, every term, every day. I stay young, I stay fresh. They can wear you down, don't get me wrong. They can wear you down with the same old stuff. But what really keeps me going is that I feel that I've got a roadmap for their success, and that I can help them out, give them detours, and keep them away from the trouble spots if we can all just come together and they can trust me. I really think that, my mission and my promised land is I've got a roadmap. The old saying, if I'd only known, today, if I'd only known. Kids, man, I know, and I'm here to help you out, so that you can avoid some mistakes and that you can get there faster. All right. Trust me. And if you're relatable and you have a good enough relationship with them and you build that trust, that's when they listen to you, and, it's like, I know that you're in the moment. I know that, the teenage brain is not fully developed and you're only hearing a third of what I'm saying right now, but trust me, I know today you don't need to make all these mistakes. You're going to make some just because of who you are. But if you just stick with me, I got a map. I've got a roadmap. I got the detours. I can help you out. Just stick to the plan and we'll get there.
I like, there's a couple things I pull from that. The academic calendar sets itself up so well to have a new start, a fresh start, and a way to, you're talking about a new term or a new season or whatever. And it's really good for kids to get that too. It's good for us. It's good for kids to say, okay, this is new. This is fresh. Let's go at it again. And to have that. And that's one of the things I love about that so much. And then the other thing I think about is your promised land statement. And I haven't heard that before. I think that's cool. And I'd really like to jump into some Jeremy Boone stuff at some point. But one of the things I think about too is, oh man, I was talking to my buddy. He actually lives up by you. He's at University of Minnesota. His name's Jake Niederman. And conversations, he was talking about how we're on top of the mountain. When you finally reach the top of the mountain, you're not meant to just stay at the top of the mountain. You kind of gain perspective, right? But then you continue on your journey. And where's the next place you have to go? You have to travel back down the mountain into that valley. And so you have these high points, these low points and all that. But there's not like this promised land, but more so of a journey, right? And we're all on that. And so when you have your answer like that, it just reminds me of, you know what, it's more of that journey. Maybe there isn't a promised land, but more so the journey to wherever we're staying, and that's a couple of things that stick out to me. So I like that, Coach.
Yeah. And with the mountaintop, my favorite saying with that is don't climb the mountain so the world can see you. Climb the mountain so you can see the world. And then climb back down it, and so you've seen the world, get it, climb back up, take a snapshot, go back, I love that one. Don't climb it so that the world can see you, climb it so you can see the world. That gives you perspective.
Right. And then what should we do as coaches and teammates is like, bring somebody with us this next time. Right. Like,
absolutely.
That's the next step. And that's why it's so fun, is because there's always this next step. What is the next thing that we need to do to continue to progress? And
that's what's great. Back to school, the fall, to me, That is the new year. That's why I say Happy New Year. When school starts, Happy New Year. You know, and I get to celebrate New Year's 4 times a year, 5 times a year if you count the summer program. You know, really, because everything just kind of starts fresh and you get to recycle your workouts, recycle the classes. You're into a new season. You know, everything just stays fresh that way when you look at it in that regards.
Yeah. Listeners, you didn't hear this, but when we started the call, Coach said Happy New Year. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It is a Happy New Year.
What it is.
It is. They caught me off guard for a second. I was like, yep, you're right. This is good. Okay, so Coach, this is kind of the namesake of the show, and I'm excited to hear yours. We've heard some really cool, valuable responses from other coaches. If you could say how you're making the big time where you're at, for me and the listeners, I'm getting ready with my pen and my notepad right now.
All right, man. It's not a canned response, but it's my response. It's my mantra. I started out talking about being a small town guy. I have always said, you know, the key to success in any place, any profession, any location is you want to be like a farmer, okay? Be outstanding in your field. I don't need to be an expert in the field of strength and conditioning. I need to be an expert at Wayzata High School because that's my people. Those are my students. Those are my parents. Those are my families, right? So it's really easy to get caught up. Hey, I want to do what this coach is doing. I want to do what this coach is doing. I want to be an expert in the field. I want to be hitting the speaking circuit. I want to be hitting the podcast. I want to be hitting all those things. None of that stuff matters to the people that you're working with. So be outstanding in your field. Be a farmer. And, you know, when the grass looks greener or the crops look greener, water your own lawn. Water your crops. You know, you've got to be perfect in yourself. You've got to be, you know, you can't lead people if you can't lead yourself or your family. You know, I mean, if you're in a state of turmoil internally, you're wishing you were somewhere else, you're probably not going to be great with the people you're working with. So if I can, you know, stream it, hashtag be a farmer, you know, be outstanding in your fields, tend to your crops, weed your stuff, take care of your property, and life should be pretty good for you.
I remember back a few years ago, I think you had a picture of a tractor going through a field at the time when you pulled that slide up.
Absolutely.
It's coming back to me now. This is good. This is good. That is your mantra because you live by that. It's been 3 or 4 years ago, and I still love it. I write it all down again.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. When I hear that, and you know, I'm from a small town too. It was a rural community, and my grandpa and my dad grew up on farms anyway. I was on a 4-H farm, and when something hits home like that, when you see the key to success is in your field, right? To be an expert in your field, I think that speaks volumes to not looking inward, right, but looking outward, and stop coming in all the time and then portraying yourself outward and helping others. And I like that. Just kind of.
And that's really, when you think about it, that's making the big time where you're at, right? You know,
big time. Yep.
Just be an expert for your people, for your kids, and for your families. And if you're doing that, man, you're winning. You know, you're winning because that's what's important. That's why you're there. You're not. I've never, you know, I've been at Wayzata 19 years, and early on, I'd looked at making a jump, going somewhere else, looking at colleges, this and that. I'm glad I didn't. You know, in fact, I had some colleges talk me out of the job. To be, in fact, you know, to be perfectly honest, and I'm really glad I didn't. And I think, you know, I have, like Kevin Vanderbush says it all the time, make the big time where you're at. And I think that's really the most important. Now, it's not to say that you can't, you know, go to a bigger school or go to a bigger program and have success somewhere else. But wherever you go, you need to make that the most important spot in the world. You know, and if you do that, other opportunities may present themselves, and that's great. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you go into any job saying, hey, I'm only doing this to go somewhere else. Because then you're not fully investing in where you're at, you know? And that's what I kind of settled on. You know, I've been at Wayzata 19 years. I think I settled on that about, you know, 15 years ago, 4 years in. And lo and behold, things are great. And they're continuing to go great. But it's not because we hit cruise control. It's because we focus on the fact that, you know, we got to be great where we are.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like that whole clip. I'm going to have to write this down, this timestamp, so that I can put that out on social media, because that's my favorite part of the whole show so far. So, Coach, that's good stuff. So before we move on to the fast 5 questions, is there anything else, any other shout outs, anything else that you'd like to talk about? I don't want to cut you off if you got something specific that you want to talk about.
A couple of things that have been very near and dear to my heart here in Minnesota. Obviously, I'm a big part of the National High School Strength Coaches Association. Able to serve on the board as the board chair. We've started a couple of initiatives. One is a unity committee. We're doing everything we can to make sure that all of our members and all of our coaches everywhere all feel like they have an opportunity to contribute and that we see their value. Obviously, being close to the Minneapolis area with the George Floyd tragedy that occurred earlier this year. One thing that I've taken a real hard look at is culture. We talk so much, we started talking about weight room culture early on. And we talk a lot about weight room culture. What's your weight room culture? Hard work. Come in here and you got to succeed. You got to do this. You got to do that. And one thing, I've been very passionate about recently and aware of that I might not have been aware of before is that when we talk about weight room culture, we need to make sure we're adhering to the word culture. And that includes all of our students, all of our athletes, regardless of race, gender, all of those things. And I think I bring this up just because my eyes have been opened. We talk so much about culture, and so many times we tell all these kids walking into our facilities, hey, this is my culture. Put your culture on the shelf. Leave that out in the hallway. This is how it's going to be for me in here. And I think, I talked a lot about relationships. And if we want to build relationships with kids, if we want to make a difference, I think it's important that we start respecting all cultures and bring them in and create an environment that everyone feels comfortable and allowed to share their culture with us and not just have it be, hey, I'm RJ, it's my way or the highway. So that's something that, I feel very proud about, that I'm sad that I didn't have this revelation sooner. I thought that, I was, a forward-thinking person, and I've always been very welcoming and opening, but I also have at times, been, hey, this is how we do things in here. It's my way. And you start thinking, man, let's open our eyes up a little bit and make sure that we're not putting anyone else's culture, shuffling those out. And that goes into so many different things. I go back to my soft skills about being on time. You light a kid up for being late to class, and then you find out that he had to drive his sister to school, and that's why he was late to your class. And you're like, geez, So there's a way to blend that, but that's something that I've definitely been very awakened to and want to share that message with as many people as possible. If you're truly talking about building a culture, you need to make sure you're not making kids leave their culture outside in the hallway before they come into your room.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to see change in people, if you really want it to stick, and it's not just a weight room thing, it's not like they just work hard, don't swear, do everything when they enter the weight room, but then actually carry it over. I think it's what you just talked about right there, right? Like there's this way to blend this and have high expectations and say, this is a really good, kind of like your roadmap earlier, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So this is a really good way. I'm telling you, this could really help you out, right? And being able to see that everybody's coming from different backgrounds and has all these different experiences, man, it makes things so much better, right? Like don't they say that variety is the spice of life, right? Like that's
when I go back to those soft skills. I'm like, okay, you came late. Rather than just run in and run over the spot rack, come over to me and say, Coach, I really apologize. I'm late. Both my parents are working this shift. I had to take my sister to school, and I apologize. It's really not my fault, but I had to do it. And those are the conversations that I think go a long way. And that'll help kids out when they go to college. It'll help them out when they have a job. Go talk to your boss. Have conversations. Don't skirt issues. Don't be ashamed of issues. And that's a hard thing to say, but do the best you can to put yourself in the best possible situation for success. Try to leave no room for doubt. So
NHSSCA's Unity Committee, right? Is that how it's said?
Yep.
Unity Committee. That is awesome. I've seen that kind of pushed out through the Facebook group. I got some emails on it too.
Yep.
If you have questions on that, I'm sure Coach would field that. So if you're a listener on here, he can direct you exactly where you need to go. We'll put his contact information in the show notes. If you want to be a part of that or learn more about that, I'll let him kind of be a point man and direct you where you need to go. Sweet.
Yep, absolutely. It's important. It's very important, especially, for us that are working with kids. And we're seeing kids of all races, all backgrounds, everything. And that's such a prime point in their lives. If they feel like they run into a cement wall when they're 16, man, that really can affect them for the rest of their life. And I think that's something that we really need to focus on as well. And the weight room, like you said, is a great opportunity to do this. They always say that swimming, water is the great equalizer. Take athletes, throw them in a pool, Well, the weight room is a little bit like that too. It's a great melting pot, great opportunity to learn and grow with each other.
That's great. Coach, was there anything else that you wanted to make sure our listeners heard or that you wanted to speak about?
No, I think it's great. And along that line of the Unity Committee, Amanda Bird's been killing it with her podcast and working with you too. I've loved those. I'm a big fan of Amanda's, and I think, she is out there. She's an awesome coach. She's an awesome individual. She's on the forefront for making sure we hear from our women coaches' voices, who I wholeheartedly agree with. So shout out to you for creating that opportunity on your podcast, and got to give Amanda a plug because she's doing great. I'm blessed. I'm around such great people up here in Minnesota. Amanda and Jessica and Mike Bryan and Scott Meyer. You talk about the promised land. Minnesota's a pretty good spot. Can't complain.
There you go. Hey, yeah, man, we're excited to have Coach Berg on. She's phenomenal. First of all, she's a go-getter. Like she knows how to work. He came in and she knows how to work, and it's awesome. And then on top of that, she's got a vision. She knows what she wants, and she's going to help people get there, and she's going to help other people be able to have a voice. And that is really, really cool stuff. So listeners, if you haven't had a chance to listen to any of her episodes yet, I would definitely recommend doing that. She will be on, I think, next week. Yeah, she'll be on next week. So you check out her episodes. They're always great. So Coach, moving into the Fast Five here, the first one I have for you is, what's your favorite book?
Well, we kind of talked about this to start the show. I've got so many books. I'm a big reader. I love all of them. My favorite current book is It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad. And I even ran down the hallway and grabbed it. This was suggested to me by my good buddy Kevin Vanderbush. And I got to tell you right now, there's a foreword by Russell Wilson. I think he tweeted it out, this whole stuff. The thing about this book, and I think it's so relevant right now, is the tagline on this book is how to think neutrally and gain control of your life. And it's a little bit about normalizing things. Jeremy Boone talks about this, stacking wins, normalizing the new normal, not the new normal, but the next normal. COVID, this is a great example. We got distance learning, hybrid learning. You start talking about radical acceptance. You just got to accept where things are right now, roll up your sleeves, be an example to your kids, move forward, and so it takes what it takes. It's been fantastic. It has just been great. I've got a long list of things that I've read, Switch, the All Blacks rugby. I think I've got the typical strength coaches library, that we all got. But the one that I'm on right now that, it takes what it takes, that neutral thinking. I think that is a great topic for what we got going on right now.
Yeah, it helps you think clear. I've heard people talk about this thought process before, so I'm interested to read the book now. I've got it wrote down here. It'll be one of my next books that I read. But man, when you can take any circumstance, any event, and then be able to just see it for what it is, right, and take it in, it helps you make better decisions, and it helps you think clearly. And
it does, and it helps us to be leaders for kids that are like, oh, we're supposed to have football season. We're supposed to be in school every day. You're like, hey, it is what it is. It just takes what it takes. We're going to get to the next step, And if we can portray that neutrality and that acceptance of where things are and roll with the flow, roll with the punches, that just helps us out to be better leaders for our kids.
Mm-hmm. That's good stuff. I like that. All right. How about a person that's influenced you the most?
So many coaches, so many people. I look back to this. I've been asked this question a lot. My dad was a huge influence on me. I kind of started out talking about him. Small town coach in the middle of nowhere. I don't think he ever lifted weights ever. That was back in the time when they just baled hay and went and played football and basketball and track, To me, that was always a simpler time of life when you just changed shoes, not leagues, you just went to the next one. But the fact that he reached out to a conference rival that pounded us year in and year out and said, what is it that you're doing? That was a big influence. And not just because he was my father, and he'll probably never listen to this, so I won't get any street cred from him on it. I'd have to show him how to log in to listen to it anyways. But, he was one that, the fact that he did that in the middle of nowhere and, he kind of had the gusto to reach out to someone else, that taught me that if you don't know the answer, go seek it out. If they're out there, go find it, And I've had other, coaches along the way that have reached out. The most famous coach that I have been around that I've learned from is Tony Dungy. I had the luxury of being in a room that he walked into and he spoke to the Minnesota Gopher football team. And holy cow, you talk about certain people just having a presence and an aura. When Tony Dungy walked in the room, you could feel the electricity. He didn't even say a word. And you just knew that you were in the presence of greatness. And then he began to speak, and you heard it, you felt it, you tasted it, you saw it. He's an amazing person too. So the stuff that he's put out, Dungy would be my famous one. My dad would be my most relevant one, probably because I lived with him. I got to be around him more than anybody else. But, and all of the coaches, there's two groups of coaches in my mind that have made me who I am. All of my great coaches and all of my bad coaches. I never wanted to be like the bad coaches, but I always wanted to be like all the good coaches.
Yeah, that's funny, right? You can learn from both. Yeah, and you should learn from
Absolutely.
both.
Absolutely.
All right, Coach, how about your best piece of advice? And you put out a lot of really good advice so far, so maybe you have to reach down deep for this one. I'm not sure, but best piece of advice you have been given.
Teddy Roosevelt, my dad was a history teacher. Do what you can with what you have with where you are. Best piece of advice I ever got. My dad's a history teacher, a small town guy, farmer, and that really speaks volume back to, be a farmer. Focus on where you're at. Do what you can with what you have with where you are. If you can make it better, great. Don't pine away and say, we would be so much greater if I had this, this, and this. Do what you can. Roll up your sleeves and get to work, son. That type of deal. So do what you can with what you have with where you are. And I think that's a good mindset to have, because no excuses, right? Get the work done. If you can improve the situation with equipment or software or anything, that's great. But, be an expert in your field, right? Back to that farmer.
Mm-hmm. That's good. How about a hobby outside of training? What's your favorite one?
Okay, so now this is crazy, and I don't want, all my buddies giving me a hard time on this one, but whatever, it's okay. I'll put the ego on the shelf. I love playing in the dirt. I come home after being in the weight room all day, every day, and I cut grass, I weed whip, and I got a lot of hostas. I love hostas and daylilies. I'm out there planting, splitting up hostas, splitting up daylilies. I got a hillside, I got about a half-acre property. I got hostas everywhere, daylilies everywhere. Go figure. I talk about being a farmer and I'm out there playing in the dirt, but those are my babies out there. That's what I do when I come home. And I walk in the garage, I change my shoes, I go out back, I grab a shovel, grab the weed whip, kind of decompress from everything. Mm-hmm. And that way I can take off my coach's hat and just kind of get grounded, get a little bit of work in. And then I go and make dinner. I love making dinner. I'm not around in the mornings for my family. My two oldest are in college, but I got two kids in high school yet. These early mornings for strength coaches, so I'm out the door. But I make dinner for the family every night. That's really important to me. I'm able to cook. I do the dishes. I'm there. And so that's kind of a day in the life. Get up, go and coach, come home, try to play in the dirt. In the winter, it's snow, right? Got to blow the driveway out and some of that. And with that, I love ice fishing. That everyone that knows me, I always say, come up to Minnesota. I'll take you out ice fishing. I've got an ice house. I'm out there drilling holes, and we've got a bass boat. I like fishing in the summer a little bit, but really, my winter activity is I embrace it up here. We go out ice fishing. I'll take anybody out anytime that wants to go out ice fishing.
I'd love to come up and visit you, but I'll pass on the ice fishing. Okay.
Come on, man. You're not soft. I know you're not. You can handle it. We got a house. It's warm. We got TVs. We're watching NFL. It's really cool. It's more than just what you think.
Well, good. Well, maybe I'll have to take you up on it now. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might have talked me into it. All right. The last one, Coach, and this is kind of how we continue to expand our list of coaches that we need to learn from. Who's a coach that deserves a shout out? Somebody that's a small school coach, so a small college, or any high school coach that deserves a shout out?
Oh, man. I know we've shouted out a bunch of my Minnesota peeps already. We've given them great credit, and they all deserve it. Mike Bryan, Elk River Area High School, Elk River, Minnesota. He is up there, and they're not in the largest class in Minnesota, but their football team, their hockey team, Mike Bryan, Elk River Area High School. He's a guy that I got to know, 23 years ago. My first teaching job was at Elk River, and I got to know Mike there. And he has been doing phenomenal things for the Elks.
Nice. The Elk River Elks, huh?
Yep. It's not a real word. The Elks isn't a real word, but he's in charge of them.
That's good. Coach, I honestly, this has been great. This has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you taking the time. Just so listeners know, we had a time that we had scheduled prior to this to record earlier this week, and Coach got some good news. His daughter got moved up to varsity, and he's going to have to go to a game to record a podcast. And what an awesome deal! What an awesome deal for a dad to be able to experience that. So.
Yeah, I feel bad about canceling on you, but I was like, I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, hey, man, she's playing varsity. Holy cow.
Yeah,
so that was awesome. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Okay, so you got a family man here that likes to play in the dirt, and he also trains some kids. So that's some good stuff. Hey, Coach, we're going to put your contact information in the show notes. Thank you for everything that you've done. I hope people reach out to you, learn from you more. I know you're an open book. You want to share.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that, and great job with this show, Coach.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate being on.